might be one reason that we're seeing that. But Unicorns still staying focused now towards the mid lane. The Syndra, of course, already locked in for them. Away goes that Lucian, typically picked into Orianna. Fizz still available. Ekko we've seen fall off in the recent patches, but is still a good matchup into that Syndra specifically. It is indeed, and I'd like to see Nukeduck back in an assassin. Didn't see too many of them throughout the course of the spring split, and hell, the name Nuke is in his name. Like somebody that can blow something up. Last two bans is going to be the Tahm Kench and the Galio. So Vizicsacsi and Cabochard. Two guys with a lot of depth to them, but come on, carry v carry, make this exciting. You can flex Fizz here quite effectively. Fizz can play into Gragas in the top lane quite well, and it's a good matchup into Syndra. One that Nukeduck should be very comfortable with. So this would be one pick. However, Nukeduck, the last few games of Vitality in the spring split, we saw Ekko performances come out from Nukeduck that were insane. It was the best Vitality we were really starting to see. Wasn't enough to save their split. But again, a comfort pick comes out. Vitality maybe looking to set up for 1-3-1. That's what Yamato Cannon did very well with Splice. And I'm glad you mentioned that because, of course, the end of spring when the pressure was off Vitality, they played their best. They've got an all-European roster now to start off summer, new coach. And we'll see how well they play. Rounding out Unicorns of the Love team composition, it is Shen and Braum, so we know that's a Gragas jungle. It's in line with the Rakan, the Tahm Kench that was banned away, something that can play protective now. Alongside this, Caitlyn has a fair amount of dominance in lane, but where Vitality go next surely has to be lane strength. Kled would be one option. Does eventually start winning trades against the Shen, can have a lot of presence. So Vitality, you would be excused for thinking that with yellow overlays and a 1-3-1 setup, we were watching Splice from 2016 summer, but this is Vitality with Yamato Cannon. I'm excited to see how this team composition can run up against the second place team from spring. Absolutely. Unicorns team comp has the option to be very, very reactive, and the Unicorns are coming back to the European stage after a little over a week in Korea, spending a lot of time with the Rocks Tigers and playing solo queue. Sheepy and Yamato will be shaking hands once again. This time, however, Vitality, new org, new players. How well have they prepared? How much practice have they secured? Because they're coming up against the same 5 Unicorns who, as you said, took second. And a Unicorns lineup that has some of their real big ticket picks from spring. The Shen, Vizicsacsi, the Caitlyn. This is a very solid draft out of the Unicorns for their style around team fighting later into the game. So Vitality, they're going to have their wits about them if they're going to control all 3 lanes of this map. Yeah, and of course Vitality with their Kled, the Thresh, the Ekko, Elise, those are sort of playmaking champions. Great in skirmishes, great if they can get that 1-3-1 down. You guys know what to do. Jump onto Twitter, and if you support the Love Hurts crew, hashtag UOL win. And of course, if you think the Bees will start the split with a sting, hashtag VIT win. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the summer split. Unicorns taking on Vitality. Gonna have to see whether the Weedle of Vitality is turned into the Kakuna into B-Drill now, or whether it's not quite going to be enough. Need a little bit more time hibernating. But I think there are higher expectations on Vitality here. But it's a tough task. Unicorns have looked so good this whole split. Yeah, and I think just to be the caveat, and not to start on a Debbie Downer, but this is a team that has been struggling for a while. So for Vitality, the all-European roster, the new coaching staff, let's see what they can do. But my excitement is definitely a little bit more around this UOL squad. We talked about how it's the same 5 players. Stress, this is the first time in 2.5 years that the Unicorns of Love have gone from one split to another with the same starting 5. The only other time that happened was spring to summer in their debut. Nukeduck gets tagged, but goes to phase dive. This should get him to safety. Yeah, he's okay here. 3 seconds for the next phase dive. Forces the flash. Nukeduck counting down the queue until Hilly could fire again. Respect just in case Xerxe body slam flashed him. It wasn't super likely, but Nukeduck playing, knowing he has teleport in lane. He will now sacrifice a little bit of lane presence. Of course, it's only post 6 that this Ekko really has the effect against Syndra, so it shouldn't be too damning unless Xerxe gets to mid lane before that flash is back available. Damn, as if Ekko into Syndra wasn't difficult enough. In the early game, yeah. Now you've got to deal with not having flash. And I'm glad you mentioned Xerxe. He's got that Gragas. Started to pick that one up towards the end of the spring split. He and Vizicsacsi had phenomenal performances. Vizicsacsi ended up going MVP of spring.
undoubtedly the best top laner we had.
Oh, yeah.
And Xerxe blew everyone away with consistent performance and growth, earning that Rookie of the Split title.
He was putting up massive numbers and great performances as well, and you look at this first game of the split, I look at Gragas and I say that's exactly what Xerxe likes to do, is he can play the engaged champion, he can determine when the Unicorns go aggressive, and in Chachi, he's going to try and control the side lane. Difficult against Kled, but then bring him into team fights. Get onto Samux with the Stand United, and again, tip the numbers in Unicorn's favor. So Vitality have given Unicorn some very comfortable picks for the opening game for them this split.
Yeah, absolutely. Exile's going to use that Force of Will. Dark Sphere and Nukeduck just gets obliterated his HP. It's a level 1 versus level 2, of course, and Nukeduck's just going to have to farm up under the tower.
Yeah, he's going to sacrifice a little bit, but Time Winder will help him out when he decides to use it. Obviously, after level 2, he took Phase Dive first to jump over the wall. So now he should be okay, and that's where the TP we were talking about comes into play.
Ooh, look at this. Death Sentence down onto Hilly. Vander and Steelback got themselves some good early damage.
And there's a difference here between that trade and a lot of the trades we were seeing in yesterday's 2v2s where the Thresh hook would land and suddenly they'd trade evenly. Samux didn't have too much of an opportunity to return fire onto Vander or Steelback, and that's going to be an interesting thing that we look at when we go further on in this lane. Hylissang forced to use a potion already. We do have a Doran's Blade on Samux, so it means if they're not dictating the trades in this bottom lane, that's where the Doran's Shield sustain will actually outweigh the added damage threat the Blade brings.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see how it progresses, of course. These scaling ADCs with Doran's Blade working in their favor. Bear Trap on a rope there for Cabochard. Just getting some trading down. Doran, I did like seeing Steelback and Vander working together. Steelback, one of the most hyped AD carries from last year. Transitions to Vitality, and unfortunately had a plethora of supports at his side. So he wasn't really set up for success, right? But we still know the ability. We know the high highs that Steelback can reach. Now let's see if more consistent bottom lane with Vander helps him out.
And I look at the support pool in Europe, and if I'm an AD carry, I'm saying I want Vander next to me because Mythi, he's on G2, but if there's a guy that is at least second best here, Vander at the end of 2016 was putting up big performances for H2K, so I think this is a big steal from Vitality to pick him up off the failed Schalke roster that were aiming to get into the LCS.
Yeah, the amount of experience you're talking about, 193 LCS games, semi-finalists last year. Here's another death sentence, catching out Hylissang, pulling him backwards. A lot of minions being fought into, though, as we jump to the mid. No flasher, Nukeduck, Xerxe sets up a play. But the parallel convergence dissuades the engage. And there we go. Love Hurts ramping up the volume here in Berlin. There's Vitality in UOL. They just keep trading back and forth, but nobody's cracking yet.
Yeah, they were trying to capitalize on the fact that Nukeduck had just TP'd back into lane, so trying to double down, no flash, no TP. Maybe we can put him super far behind in the lane, but it wasn't quite enough. Nukeduck maintained his health for a lot of that. Parallel convergence came down and he was easily able to get out. But look, Unicorns didn't expend anything but time for it either. Xerxe didn't flash in. He has the opportunity to do that again in the next couple of seconds, but Nukeduck doesn't really have too long left on that flash cooldown.
No, and he's going to have access to the Chrono Break shortly as well. So another get-out-of-jail free card for Nukeduck's mid lane Ekko. Looking at the summoner spells, it was the flash teleport, sorry. So that's, of course, helping him out. In actual fact, earning Nukeduck a CS advantage despite being flashless. Exileh, on the other hand, he's opted to go for the flash heal. So looking to mitigate some of the burst damage instead of the cleanse, which is something we've seen a couple times into Elise's, but normally a little more hard CC for that to be valuable.
Yeah, a couple of items we got to look at here as well as Djoko's coming down to the bottom. It's Steelback. He's back in lane.
Vander gets the two-man play. Djoko's looking for Samux, sinks the fangs in. Vitality trading damage back and forth. It's Steelback with the kill. Cocoon catches Hylissang and he gets a concussive bow down and is able to escape. Vitality sting first.
Yeah, Vitality able to get back to lane very quickly off the boot spy from Steelback. They're able to get the first kill.
And it's so important and something that Djoko has done all split long. Djoko was involved in 18 out of 19 first bloods for Vitality. First game on the stage, and he gets it again with the bottom lane.
This guy is trying to gun for Jankos' moniker. We'll see when they end up playing against H2K whether Djoko maintains that. Jankos back on form as well, but Djoko has gone from strength to strength. From a guy that subbed in for the Unicorns and people had a lot of questions outside of his Rex side to now a seemingly more reliable jungler on Vitality. We're only 6 minutes into the first game for them with the split, but I think this kind of performance out of Djoko, if he can keep it going, is what they can build off. Here comes the stealth in the top lane, not expecting this.
Steelback yells, surprise! As the charge goes down from Cabochard. Vizicsacsi takes a lot of damage. Flash forward with a bear trap on a rope, but Vizicsacsi breaks the tether. And Vitality, they start the early lane swap. They get Chachi's flash.
We've seen this happen across other leagues. LCK have done this a few times where you get something down in the bottom lane and then swap up towards top, put pressure on the top lane. And look, now that Chachi had just hit 6, he can't really utilize that for a while now. Unicorns are pushing down in the bottom lane. Chachi can't really defend top on his own. There's 3 people from Vitality already up there pushing towards that tower, and already Vitality with a breath of life compared to their spring split team.
Yeah, great start to the game. We're in a race for tower first blood. I redact the statement. Vitality will get tower first blood. They are much further ahead. A tempo advantage of the initial play, and they're actually going to give the goal to Cabochard as well.
And now what they can do, if they can end up getting in 2 minutes time that Rift Herald and break mid lane as well, this is where a 1-3-1 composition can come alive, because typically you don't get that mid tower until a lot later into the game. Now if you have control through mid and through the jungle, that's where Djoko can move from lane to lane, just assist where they need it.
And so can Steelback.
Yeah.
Throw down the ambush on that
exactly.
Twitch. The roaming death squad that Vitality can put together. All right, Nukeduck, he's gone in with a parallel convergence. Dragon still not secured. Samux will join. Exileh and
TP's coming
Xerxe.
in.
Big fight breaking out. Infernal Drake is the objective. Djoko, no smite available. He's in the pit. That's a 2-man stun. Vitality forced to repel up into the air, but they get the dragon as well.
Vitality getting objective after objective here. It's only a minor gold lead for them, but still, this is so much quicker, so much more involved than Spring's Vitality were, and it's all off the back of first Djoko making the first set of plays in the game and then dragging their bottom lane up to the top side, bringing them down to Dragon. They're being very active on the map.
And I think it's very important that Vitality secure those objectives because they are still even in gold. Stress, for a team that got first tower blood, first dragon, the CS differences that were in top and middle until a few seconds ago is what's keeping UOL relevant itemization-wise.
Chachi has had a little time to soak some farm up on the top side. He was a little ahead before the swap as well. That's where some of this gold disparity is being made up, but the same Xerxe has been farming up quite heavily himself. I want to see Unicorn's next move on this. Where do they stem the bleeding? I think they have to play a little bit around Rift Herald now because that first tower cracking so quickly in favor of a 1-3-1 comp. I think you have to be a lot more aware of an on-spawn Rift Herald take, especially when it's an Elise, a champion that's very good at taking Rift Herald quickly. That's what I got to watch out for.
Yeah, and looking at the vision, not really a whole lot invested there yet. UOL obviously had a lot of dragon-based vision because they made that move for the Infernal a few minutes ago. And we're getting closer to the 10-minute mark. The map slowly starting to open up. And we always talk about the setup of the 1-3-1. That's what Vitality want to do in order to activate it. And for UOL, with the likes of a Shen, they obviously want to try attack that setup, prevent it happening. And that requires having good vision and maybe sort of anticipating where Vitality goes.
Yeah, Nukeduck did just use his TP, so it's a little more difficult to set up a 1-3-1 here. But this is all focused again at pushing mid lane back out, making sure Exileh doesn't have the ability to look elsewhere because Vitality, they're going to start up this Rift Herald, as we said, on spawn. This is what a composition with 1-3-1 is aiming to do. It is so much higher a priority than any kind of dragon, apart from Infernal, would be, and the Infernal Drake already dropped in this game.
Yeah, and of course you're going to anticipate the Herald being dropped in the mid lane.
Yeah,
maybe trying to deal with Syndra's wave clear. A little bit of a slow response here, UOL. They've grouped up mid, moving into the river, but it's too late. Vander, a lot of respect for that flash early.
Yeah, and this is Unicorns actually preemptively responding to this. They push mid out and say, okay, we know you need to stack a wave to have the full effect from this. Because remember, Rift Herald will not break a tower from 100% of the way. You have to facilitate either damage first or damage alongside to crack the tower. And that's why Unicorns are saying, okay, it looks like an ARAM for now, but we need to make sure they cannot get a free mid tower from this Rift Herald.
Great reactive play. Unicorns marginally ahead in gold. They're still farming up a storm. Advantages in top, middle, jungle, and even a 10 CS advantage for Samux. And of course, dissuading the potential push. Look at the timer on that Rift Herald for Djoko. A little over sort of minute 45 seconds left before he can activate and summon her to the lane.
One thing that may hurt Unicorns for a little while in this game, at least for the next 3 minutes where the Rift Herald item is in effect. If Samux and Exileh are both sitting mid lane, where Caitlyn wants to be, and where Syndra likes to be, you're sharing farm, you're sharing experience and getting further behind. So while they have leads right now, keep your eyes on Steelback, who's happily sitting out in the side lane, farming up, making sure they can keep on top of it, but Vander might be spotted.
Oh, flash from Hylissang. Remember, Vander, he got caught earlier. Death sentence is not going to be enough. And unfortunately for Vander, he goes down. Unicorns on the board.
This is the perfect way to neutralize any mid lane play, and of course now they've got to be careful that the Nukeduck isn't just on his own. They've said, okay, just mid lane, yes, it's important, but let's just get any tower here. Let's unlock the bottom lane for Nukeduck and Cabochard. Let's go down to the bot tower, but look, Samux and Hylissang and Xerxe are on their way down to the bottom lane to defend against this, but it might be all a ruse because Vitality is still heading towards mid lane.
All right, Steelback bailed out of the lane. There's some support. Gigantic burst as the Rift Herald hammers down with the charge. Now she will get killed. Steelback, surprise! He gets tagged, chunked, not killed though. Out of mana from Exileh. Stands United buys a few extra seconds. Nukeduck has to run away, and Vizicsacsi saves Exileh.
Vitality try and throw everything and still trying to break this tower. You saw the ineffective Rift Herald in the bottom lane because Unicorns had retreated, and there's the strength of the Shen pick. The Vizicsacsi stamped his name into that MVP trophy from the spring split. It's easy to save Exileh, and suddenly Unicorns really have taken a lot of the bite out of Vitality's composition for the next few minutes.
Yeah, 10 games played on Shen this year, 7 victories for Vizicsacsi, and an instantaneous shield once Exileh flashed away. But crucial to note that flashes being down have been ganked this game. Early on, Xerxe attempted mid. It was unsuccessful. Vander being caught out. Maybe walking into someone. You can argue the semantics of that. But either way, it's the Unicorns that are just marginally ahead. And I just keep going back to, you got to give some kudos to the Unicorn squad. They lost first Tower, first Blood, first Dragon, but they're ahead in gold. And it feels like this comp can react very well to Vitality when they're not surprised.
And they have done. Putting everybody in mid lane, stopping any kind of playoff Rift Herald, then moving towards the bottom lane to deny it again, then defending a play and now pushing on to mid. Vitality might start struggling with where their plays should go because 2, 3, 4 plays have now failed.
Yeah, and such a good charge there from Hylissang. Actually jumped over to a minion and blocked the Time Winder to allow the minions to just keep hammering away on the tower. Take a look up at the top lane. Black Cleaver's been finished for Cabochard. He's sitting in the Tiamat into Kim's Razor. Good stun onto Nukeduck. He's going to decide to go forward. Unleashed power from Exileh. Wow! Thunderlords and Dark Sphere takes him down. Nukeduck didn't even use the ulti. Now Vander's in trouble. The box and flash are available. Neither are used. Unicorns get 2, and they get the tower as well.
He couldn't use it because it was 1 second away from being available. As his corpse fell to the floor, it came back off cooldown. Unicorns of Love finding the slightest of margins to punish Vitality, and now it's Unicorns taking down the first mid tower of the game when it's everything Vitality have been aiming for the last 5 minutes.
There's been so much talk about mid laners in Europe in the spring split, and Exileh is one of the guys that just performed phenomenally. Look at this great start.
So looking at it the first time around, this is actually, the indicator is incorrect on the replay here for Ekko. It was 1 second away from being available. Nukeduck undoubtedly would have hit it if he could, but Exileh getting that sphere just underneath Ekko, taking down the kill.
And that just means UOL stamp control on the game, Stress. They get that outer turret while we were in the replay. Looks like they're going to secure this dragon here as well. Vitality will arrive in a moment or two. Hilly may need to yell, stand behind me. He does. Gets behind Xerxe and easily escapes. And that just means Unicorns, they take charge. You know,
yep.
they've got the lead, they've got the items, and Exileh, he set up the picks.
This has been an interesting game where we've seen strengths and weaknesses from both teams. Where we saw Unicorns maybe not quite prepared for the bottom lane setup with the Twitch, with the Thresh, then Vitality moving towards the top side, but then they've kind of run aground. Yeah. Is probably the best way of putting it. Everything they've tried hasn't been as successful as they'd planned, so now this should be an easy take on the bottom tower. They'll be able to defend the top side as well as Nukeduck's heading up there with his TP, and this is where double TP can start to take over. Unicorns, they can only bring Shen across the map. They can't bring Samux's Caitlyn, and this is where they can start to really pressure towers.
Oh, look at that! Oh. Djoko, goodbye!
I was watching to see whether Chachi was flashed off after the taunt, but just Djoko too close, didn't have a chance to repel, didn't have his flash available. You talked about flashes being punished when they weren't there. Djoko gets punished for treading too far to the tower. They should have just taken the one tower and been done with it.
That is why Chachi got MVP and why Xerxe was rookie of the split. The combo, man. The combo. Oh, they just made that look, they're just good. Like, no hesitation. Insta-gib under the tower. A little bit of maybe disrespect from Vitality, going very far forward with limited vision. But I want to praise the play from UOL. No hesitation and just great communication, which is something they did exceptionally well all split long.
Yeah.
The team, when they went in together.
They were always there together as a team. And that's another interesting thing with another split to have more experience. They've already got the second most championship points you can get. They surely are chomping at the bit to get to Worlds. This is a team that I think actually could do very well against a number of internationals. They will, of course, be playing, I believe, some others. Oh, hang on, Xerxe's going in.
Yeah, exactly. Nukeduck's going to be forced to flash. A lot of threats in the tower. Look at the ring of vision in the top quadrant. Unicorns making it very clear they can play around that tower very safely. And I'm going to go back to what you said a few seconds ago. Second place, most championship points, same team, Korean Bootcamp. This is the best Unicorns of Love we've ever seen. Yeah. You know, they've made playoffs every single split. They've made finals twice. And they've kept the roster only for the second time ever between splits, which is a big deal for a team that has kind of been plagued, you know, losing some players, some unlucky situations, some visa, etc. And there's very, very high hopes for the Love Hurts crew here and everybody who is a Unicorns fan online.
What a fine Xerxe was as a jungler. I mean, a lot of people, obviously, he came from the TCL. A lot of people didn't really rate him as a jungler, and comes out and does a fantastic job. And it's really showed up one of the biggest problems Unicorns have had over a long period of time, that they've fixed now a consistent jungler who genuinely looks to be one of the best junglers that Europe has.
Yeah, reliable performer, deep champion pool. After some experimentation, struggled a little bit throughout the course of the early weeks of the split. And as we get to 20 minutes, Stress, it's a 2,000 lead for UOL. They've now stamped control on the map. And you mentioned some of the rosters, and we talked about UOL over time. Djoko and Steelback once wore the pink, proudly. Yeah. Not exactly a revenge game.
No.
Death sentence goes down. This is a pretty tanky Vizicsacsi. He gets the Stand United out and quite easily escapes. So Vander uses the box for that one. A little bit of an optimistic attempt.
I think there's one thing to say. I don't think a player's ever left the Unicorns with any malice. I don't think we've ever heard any behind-the-scenes stuff. So certainly, as you said, not a revenge game for them. But an interesting story nonetheless is Cabochard is going to get stunned up. Nukeduck may not be able to react in time.
That means retreat! But Cabochard can't retreat. He gets blown up. The man on your screen, Yamato Cannon, definitely helping Vitality in the early game, giving them a breath of life. But now Vitality showing some weaknesses against a very veteran, battle-scarred Unicorns of Love squad.
And this is becoming reminiscent. If I remember, it was an H2K versus Splyce playoff series. I know that doesn't seem too relevant, but Splyce playing 1-3-1 under Yamato Cannon couldn't break mid-tower for 30 minutes of the game, and their composition fell apart, and it feels like the same weakness for Vitality here. They tried, they overextended, played into the Unicorns' hands, and now they don't have the room on the map to play this composition out. Yeah,
and of course, you know, you have to give some props to the Unicorns. Once that Rift Herald went down, they instantly responded and went, oh, I know what to do. This is where you ARAM mid, guys. Samux is going to get out of range of Nukeduck's convergence, and there are no real threats. And now all of a sudden it's UOL setting up what looks like a 4-1.
They have a cut right in towards mid lane that they can push down towards this next inner tower, and Vitality can't react in time. Twitch has been out on the side lane trying to play with the 3-person stack out there. However, hook does land.
But it catches Vizicsacsi. That's not who you want. Unicorn definitely enthusiastic backstage.
That thing looks evil.
Sheepy's trying so hard to be serious, and he's like, Roma, come on.
Like, we are playing an EU LCS game right now. This is serious business. But Unicorns are looking fantastic. We talked about their preparation coming into the split. We've talked about how they've stayed together. Looking at Vitality on the other side, I guess the question is, how much are people expecting them to contend with the second place European team? Because I think to some extent that what we saw in the early game is actually commendable out of Vitality. And I think against other teams, this might have been a lot more successful that didn't know to defend mid tower with everything. I think teams, maybe the performance we saw out of Rocket in the previous game, may have crumbled at that strategy.
I agree, and I also think it is week one. Each team's played one series so far. We absolutely love to make sweeping statements. I know I do. I'm particularly well known for my sweeping statements. But I will have tempered expectations. Because, of course, Vander's going to catch out Xerxe. Xerxe with that frozen heart, very tanky right now. Vitality still unable to find a kill, and Samux is untouched. Vander goes down, Chrono Break, simply not enough damage. Samux with the red buff, and the ace in the hole not even needed. That's a double kill for UOL's AD carry.
The Unicorns team fighting looks as clean as ever. Vitality throwing everything at the engage, trying to get right into the mix. And you know, cool, calm, collected. Chachi comes in with the stand united on Xerxe. Unicorns take out 2. Now they're looking for Baron. Stun lands.
Look at this. Unleashed power not even necessary. Exileh takes down Steelback with just the combos. Force of Will once more. Gets Scatter the Weak out, and Djoko's down. Exileh with a double kill delayed ace on Vitality.
He's starting off summer as he means to go on. He had some of the highest kills per game of a player in any league in Spring Split, and Exileh already 5 on the board. This guy is a machine, as Unicorns are love with a good turnaround here. Looked like Xerxe was caught, and maybe they couldn't take it, but remember the Shen ult comes through instantly onto Hylissang. Excuse me, and then they keep Hylissang alive. Cabochard runs into the fight, tries to escape. Nukeduck can't even get the kill with a Chrono Break, and from there, it's an easy double kill for Samux on this Caitlyn. How comfortable is this guy when he's given the Sheriff a Piltover?
Oh man, it helps when you've got a Gragas, a Shen, and a Braum to soak everything up, but that's the team. You know, they've built around Samux, who is arguably a defensive laner, but he's definitely a great team fighter. And Unicorns have leaned on Samux throughout the year, and he has not faltered. He's not buckled under the pressure, and just Unicorns, look, they were the favorites this matchup. You know, they are playing well, they are, you know, expected to do this, and just they didn't stress, it hasn't felt like they were scared at all, despite Vitality getting some early advantages.
This is what you would expect a team that invested in a boot camp to look like. We saw it out of Fnatic yesterday as well, looking very clean, very crisp, prepared for the split. And you can see the teams that seemingly have invested in this growth in between spring and summer split legitimately look prepared, legitimately look like contenders in their group. And as you said, Unicorns were expected even before we saw what they look out of the boot camp, but this is looking good.
Yeah, it really is. Only one death on the Unicorn side. It is Samux from early in the game. I am hoping Xerxe dies a little bit more on a personal level, because Vedius has him in his fantasy team. And I need to win this week. I'm taking fantasy quite seriously. I've not won, ever. So Exileh needs to kill everyone.
Not even that time when you drafted all TSM players?
No, that didn't work as well as I'd hoped,
Surprise! Should have stuck with Europe at that point.
Exactly. Unicorns of Love are going to take down their 5th tower of the game. with the help of Baron buff. Still a minute 20. Vizicsacsi.
Chachi doesn't care.
He's straight up
He
ignoring.
really doesn't care at this point, pushing with Baron buff. Cabochard gave up. He actually gave up. But I want to look at how Vitality's composition can actually play from behind, and it's very difficult. You look at a Thresh support when playing from behind, you basically have to catch somebody, flash hook them, try and outplay, and that's what Vander's kind of been trying to do, but it's so tough to actually play from behind against a team fighting composition for a team fighting team that have done it very well.
I am glad you mentioned that, though, because yes, it is a gigantic advantage. However, there's only 2 damage sources on the side of UOL, so if Nukeduck and Vander can somehow find a target, it'll buy them time. Vizicsacsi got himself that goggles stone plate, so good luck killing him anymore. Definitely going to be able to jump on the front line and Steelback. Only 2 items to his name. Hurricane and Blade of the Rune King going up against Edge, Zeal, Hurricane, and QSS for Samux. So pretty significant difference when it comes to itemization.
It is, of course, Caitlyn. Everybody talks about being 4 items. Well, if you're ahead of the enemy AD carry, generally a lot of the time you'll be doing well, but in the sense of team fights. But Exileh himself is perhaps the more vulnerable one, as I say that Samux gets jumped on.
Exactly, look at the damage, but there's no support for Nukeduck! Exileh is dominating!
Comes in, sweeps up the kill, says, Samux, you got jumped on, doesn't matter.
Get me them juicy fantasy points. Anyways, Exileh and the rest of Unicorns, they've got no more Baron, but they don't even need it. Stand United and teleport still up for Chachi in his bottom lane.
Chachi didn't even ult, and his AD carry got jumped on by an AP Ekko with Lichbane. That's how cool these guys are playing out all of these team fights.
The base has been broken open. Vizicsacsi's bringing the conga line up in bottom lane. The rest of Unicorns of Love gonna take down the inhibitor to some golf claps here in Berlin. And
this looks clinical.
Just an easy move over. This is just great, you know. It is beautiful to see a team win ahead, so easily close it out. Vander's gonna get popped down. Unleash power, not enough to get the take it back. Xerxe gets the kill. Now Xerxe's running for his life as he's being shunned down by Steelback. Cocoon connects from Djoko, but not a lot of damage. Exileh is godlike. That's his 7th of the game. Continues to move forward. Steelback forced a flash. Inhibitor number 2 is the target. Parallel convergence could cut off the retreat path, but Nukeduck can't follow it in. The taunt connects and Nukeduck's down.
Again, Unicorns with another clean skirmish. Only 1 death in the entire game. Vitality came with good strategy in the early game. Good basis on a 1-3-1, but they didn't quite execute, and Unicorns punished them very hard.
13 kills for the team. 11 of them have been involved with Exileh. It's a stun onto Steelback, and the Nexus is destroyed. Unicorns pick up a couple extra kills under Djoko. Samux on a killing spree. They're not done yet. Exileh is legendary. 9 kills, and Unicorns outclass Vitality in Game 1 of Summer. For what it's worth, Exileh did not get the 10th kill. There are bonus points for the 10th kill.
People are already going to be saying, I hope QuickShot doesn't talk about fantasy for the entire split. But what people should be talking about is Unicorns looking great, because it was just more of the same we saw from Spring, which is fantastic for the Unicorns fans.
Yes.
And the Love Hurts crew. And honestly, for the European region, when you look at a team that's able to coordinate quite like that, I'm looking forward to seeing the second game in this series. Of course, it's not all over yet. Vitality, that was only one of their strategies.
Yes.
I don't think it's unthinkable to say they could come back in the series, but honestly, this time they just couldn't break mid-tower, couldn't break the game open.
It was great seeing huge smiles on the side of UOL. Vizicsacsi 107, Xerxe 106. They gave up 1 kill the entire game. Just simply no real pressure after those first few kills. And it's surprising because Vitality, they got first blood, they got first dragon, they got first tower.
And they got Rift Herald. And they were looking to push, but getting Rift Herald is only half of it. Utilizing it is the other. And Unicorns denied the Rift Herald beautifully. It was what Splyce were trying to do against H2K yesterday, but couldn't quite do.
No, they definitely could not. Unicorns, they are looking exceptionally well. They got off to a great start this series. We're going to leave it up to the analysts to take a look at game number 1.
Well, hot damn, the Unicorns of Love. It was like they didn't miss a beat between Spring and Summer. What a very convincing game from them. But we do have to pay some tribute to Vitality's early game because they didn't seem to shovel right from the start. They did seem to have kind of a plan and some moves early.
Yeah, there were a lot of question marks as to what would Vander be able to bring to the team. Well, he brought off a fantastic start to the side of Vitality by netting themselves a very first kill. I mean, like, things are looking really positive. The fact that Vitality, they made a very smart roam up to the top side of the map. Yeah, because bear in mind, like, you push in bot and you think, oh, if you've got an advantage down the bottom lane, you try to keep pushing that advantage. But instead, Vitality choose to make a roam top. And if Vander was a little bit faster to the lane, they could have even gotten themselves a kill on Tchachi and then gotten themselves that first kill. And you deny this level 6 Shen play, which mitigates a lot of the power that UOL's comp has.
Yeah, everything right now is actually looking so good for them. They even get first tower. They give all the gold to Cabochard on the Kled. They play this 1-3-1 split push. Comes like, okay, Vitality, decent start.
They got Rift Herald?
Better than expected, they got Rift Herald. And funny enough, when they got the Rift Herald, that's where I really felt like Unicorns of Love kind of won the game already. Even though it's Vitality getting Rift Herald, because what you will see is a massive macro mistake from Vander and Vitality. So at this point here, when we pause the replay and we can see both mid and bot lane, what you ideally want to do as Vitality is you want to actually push out bot with Steelback and Djoko as backup and Vander obviously nearby. And then you want to move these three guys to mid lane where you place the Rift Herald and you take the mid lane tower, you break open the game so you can really start pushing deep into the enemy territory. The problem here is that Vander doesn't wait for Steelback to actually push this bot lane out. Because then they could move together into this river here to get vision. He actually just walks in without flash, without any backup, without minions being pushed. Look at mid lane, Exileh already pushed in Nukeduck. Why is Vander walking into this river when no one is around to help him? And his mid lane is even pushed to his tower.
And bear in mind, like, he doesn't have flash either. He's basically asking to be caught out. But the additional part of this is UOL, they'd moved all 4 members to the mid, expecting this referral play to come out. They left the bottom lane open. There were many avenues for Vitality to take advantage of, but there was just a severe lack of respect coming out from Vander, and he was just too quick on the trigger.
Exactly, and because he died right there, Vitality couldn't actually utilize Rift Herald. Because now they didn't have enough members to go mid and place it. They couldn't push out bot lane because they already lost their support, so they would just get ganked and killed. So then they just kind of half-assed place it down the bottom side and be like, oh, I guess maybe with the minions we can get some damage on the tower. And that's all based on Vander moving into the river without having his lanes push first. He dies, and then no Rift Herald play.
I feel a bit bad for him. We're ragging on him pretty hard, but it did turn the game around, yeah.
Because at this moment, Unicorns of Love just turned the game completely on its head, right? They are the ones to get themselves the mid tower. They're the ones finding so many fights going in their favor. And this 1-3-1 composition that Vitality tried to set up for themselves could never really get off the ground. And this is really the determining fight that really swung things in the favor of UOL.
Yeah, and there's already a bad thing that you have to team fight with this comp as Vitality. At this point in the game, you really want to, you know, you want to split versus VIT is highlighted. Fight breaks out and all the damage is on Hylissang at first, who's obviously a tanky support, and this down means Exileh Samux, almost full HP that is sitting on during the fight. So not only is it tough to team fight at this point with a 1-3-1 comp, you also focus all your engage onto Braum. Probably the guy you actually want to hit the least in a fight like this.
Yeah, and I also feel like obviously this was the mistake we highlighted from Vander and from Vitality of not pushing the advantage. But if we think about the teams that can punish that the hardest, Unicorns of Love, it's very reminiscent of how they push through advantages all the way through Spring. They choose a moment, they get that one advantage, and they know what to do on every front.
Yeah, they're pretty good at riding the momentum. You know, you'd expect that being that you are a horse, in fact. So, Unicorns of Love.
I'm pretty sure you're a unicorn.
Yeah,
okay. Not a horse.
Have you not been paying any attention?
I'm just saying.
Oh my god.
Semantics, the visual semantics.
Who's Samantha?
Coming back to the game at hand, Unicorns of Love having an impressive performance. However, their early game definitely had points of weakness. The fact that Samux and Hylissang were pushing up that aggressively in the lane, leaving themselves open for that initial gank to play out, really gave a big avenue for Vitality to capitalize on. If they had played the map a little bit stronger, this could have been a very different game.
We've seen some games now here, week 1 EU LCS, where our top teams have looked very, very good. And some of the middle tier teams have actually looked quite weak in comparison. Yes, okay, it's week 1, but like think back to H2K versus Splice, game 2, Fnatic yesterday, now Unicorns in this game, like it ended up being quite a stomp in the end. So I want to see the top teams keep going, but we also need these middle tier teams to really start like catching up the next few weeks.
Yeah, it looks like one small mistake because that the top teams are so good at this time already, just know how to convert it into a win very quickly. And the punishment for those mistakes that you might get away with against other teams or in other scenarios are punished a lot harder. So we'll have to see. And of course, Vitality can't make those mistakes. We can see if, I don't know where I'm going with anything, but we'll see if they can win the next game, right? Oh my God, we're going to take a short break. Can you read that for me?
We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll have game 2 between the Unicorns of Love and Vitality.
Stick around.
Nailed it.
He's back in lane.
Vander gets the 2-man play. Djoko's looking for Samux, sinks the fangs in. Vitality trading damage back and forth. It's Steelback with the kill. Xerxe gets stun onto Nukeduck. He's going to decide to go forward. Unleashed power from Exileh. Wow! Thunderlords and Dark Sphere takes him down. Vitality still unable to find a kill. And Samux is untouched. Vander goes down, Chrono Break, simply not enough damage. Samux with the red buff, and the ace in the hole not even need. Unicorns pick up a couple extra kills under Djoko. Samux on a killing spree. They're not done yet. Exileh is legendary. 9 kills, and Unicorns outclass Vitality.